The Daily Bible in chronological order. New International Version Bible. Jesus' resurrection and appearances. The importance of Jesus' death is surpassed only by the good news of his resurrection. Jesus has prophesied that he will live again, and therefore his credibility is in jeopardy if he is now unable to demonstrate power over his own death. That very claim and its obvious implications has already prompted the Jewish leaders to demand a Roman guard at the tomb. The events which follow are nothing short of marvelous. They not only confirm Jesus' credibility, but also provide for believers the assurance of life after death. The drama of Jesus' reappearance unfolds with initial fear, amazement, and outright disbelief on the part of the disciples, but thereafter turns to both belief and joyous celebration. His reappearance is not merely an apparition from the spirit world. Jesus eats in their presence and invites them to touch the wounds where his hands were nailed to the cross. He appears not only in Jerusalem immediately after his resurrection, but also later in Galilee. Jesus' appearance is no mere figment of their imagination. This is Jesus himself. The Gospel writers began their accounts of the resurrection as the stone sealing the tomb is rolled away. Several of the women come to the tomb early Sunday morning, only to find it empty. When angels at the tomb tell them that Jesus has been raised from the dead, the women react with both fear and joy. At that point, the chronology of events becomes somewhat complex, but it appears that Mary Magdalene runs ahead of the other women to find Peter and John, who, upon being told of the body's disappearance, rush with Mary to the empty tomb. As Peter and John go away greatly perplexed, Jesus himself appears to Mary Magdalene, there by the tomb, and then to the other women who are still on their way back from the tomb to tell of the resurrection. Of course, Jesus' appearance to Mary and the other women gives them even more to tell about. But when the disciples hear it, they simply cannot bring themselves to believe it. Although there is no direct record of it, apparently Jesus makes a special appearance to Peter sometimes on Sunday. The other apostles makes reference to that appearance as they are discussing the resurrection later that night with a disciple named Cleopas, to whom Jesus had appeared during the same day. Finally, on this day of resurrection, Jesus will be seen to appear to all the other apostles except for Thomas, who is not present at the time. Thomas' subsequent disbelief is dispelled a week later when Jesus again appears to the apostles and Thomas views Jesus in person. The apostles will be with Jesus on several occasions, both in Jerusalem and further north in Galilee, before he gives them their apostolic commission and parting instructions. Since now, the quietness and anticipation on the morning of this ultimate miracle, the resurrection of Jesus the Christ. Stone rolled away. Matthew chapter 28, verses 2 through 4. Sunday morning. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. Women come to the tomb. Matthew chapter 28, verse 1. Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 4. Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 3. John chapter 20, verse 1. At the tomb, Sunday morning. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb?" But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. Resurrection announced. Matthew chapter 28, verse 5 through 7. Mark chapter 16, verses 5 through 7. As they entered the tomb, They saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side. They were alarmed. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter. He is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." Women reminded of prophecy. Luke chapter 24, verses 4 through 8. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still with you in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, be crucified, and on the 3rd day be raised again." Then they remembered his words.